you guys all doing? Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We can get started here. I'm just going to show you a little bit about the fire here. So right now you can kind of see that the fire is dying out, right? I got two logs, both going the same way at the bottom. And what we're going to do is really to build up the fire is you want to take a third log. And it's important not to lay it perpendicular, but you want to almost lay it, not parallel. You want to lay it perpendicular as much as you can. My fireplace is very deep, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lay it sideways like this. Right, and then you take the poker and you kind of move it around a little bit. And you're going to see in just a little bit how the airflow is going to start to move nicely underneath and around the fireplace to really get us going here on this Tuesday morning or afternoon, whatever class you're in. So I hope you guys are doing well. Fourth period class, you guys asked for a shout out, so here it is, right? Hopefully you guys are doing well, fourth period, right? And doing well. So hope you guys are having a good day at school. All right. Everybody else, what we're going to do is we're going to start in section 34. All right. So if you're following along in class, what we've been doing is we've been working our way through the Ten Commandments. So for the Fireside chat today, I'm going to jump back into our story. Remember last time, see the fire going down? I told you I would pick up. Right, the last time we were learning about the story, the Israelites went through the Red Sea and were out on the other side. Miriam sings the Song of Miriam, the first time that we see a woman leading a group of people in public prayer. And that's kind of where we have left it. Right? And then we skipped a couple sections to get to the Ten Commandments, and that's what we've been going through the last couple of days. Right? Fire. I'm just telling you, look, I know what I'm talking about. Right? Look at that thing. It's roaring now. Anyways, so what we're going to do today is we're going to pick back up with the Israelites. All right? We're going to pick back up with them. And what I want you to do is go to section 34. All right? Now, if we remember, right, that we left off in Exodus chapter 15. All right? So Exodus chapter 15 is the Song of Moses / the Song of Miriam. Right? And by chapter 16, the honeymoon has really worn off. All right? What do we mean by that? It means that the way that the Israelites feel about God is not going to be very long lasting. Right? So notice how this kind of starts off. Chapter 16, verse 1, verse uno here, people. We're on page 95 in section 34. So having set out from Elam, the whole Israelite community came into the wilderness of Sin. Now, you can just highlight that, wilderness of sin. Right? And write down that this is called the wilderness of sin because the people will turn against God and His faith and His faithfulness. Right? So the place where they're going to wander from after crossing the Red Sea across the Mount Sinai Peninsula and into the Promised Land is what we call the wilderness of sin, because it's here in the wilderness of sin that people are going to grumble, mumble, murmur, and lose faith in God. All right? And so it says, right, verse 2, here in the wilderness, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died at the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, as we sat by our kettles of meat and ate our fill of bread. But you have led us into this wilderness to make this whole assembly die of famine. Right? They paint this picture, right? Verse 3. All right, they paint a picture like their life was amazing in Israel, in Egypt, don't they? I mean, just take a look at that. If only we had died in the land of Egypt as we sat by our kettles of meat and ate our fill of bread. Life was great. We had everything we needed. If this was all we read, I mean, we'd pick it up going like, why'd you leave? Why'd you leave? The people have obviously forgotten everything that they felt about slavery, about their bondage, about how miserable it was, about how they didn't have any freedoms, right? And they're painting this rosy red picture here, right? And I think we tend to do this in our lives, right? When things aren't going our way. We kind of say to God, like, why'd you give me that? All right. So, verse 4, right? The relationship is still new, so God is going to accept some mumbling and grumbling, all right? So, verse 4, the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to rain down bread from heaven for you. Each day the people that go out and gather their daily portion. Thus I will test them to see whether they follow my instructions or not. All right, so God's going to send this bread that comes down from heaven. And we're going to call that bread the manna. right? So you can just highlight verse 4. I am going to rain down bread from heaven for you, right? This bread that comes down from heaven is called the manna. All right, once again, the bread that comes down from heaven is called manna. All right, and God is going to set out some rules concerning how the people may go about obtaining this bread each morning. All right, so here we go, verse 5. On the sixth day, each day the people are to go out and gather their daily portions. Thus I will test them. Verse 5. On the sixth day, however, when they prepare what they bring in, let it be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron told the Israelites, at evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord. When he hears your grumbling against him, right, but who are we that you should grumble against us? Right, your grumbling is not against us, it's against the Lord, right? And so what's going to happen here is God's going to send this bread from heaven down upon, this thing's popping like crazy, I don't want to get hit in the face. He's going to send this bread from heaven down upon the Israelites that they're going to be able to eat every morning, right? He's going to establish some rules. So you want to go ahead and put a note, right? He's going to test their faith, right? On days 1 through 5, the people are to take enough manna, right? Enough manna for them to eat on that day only. Right? Days 1 through 5, that day only. On day 6, they're going to take enough manna for 2 days. For the 6th day and the Sabbath day. Right? Because God is not going to send the manna on the Sabbath day because there is to be no work being done on the Sabbath day. Right? So he's only going to send it days 1 through 6, no manna on the Sabbath. But they may only take enough for 1 day, and on the day 6, they can take enough for 2 days to last them on days 6 and 7. Anything they take to go over to save to the next day is going to go bad. All right? So let's turn the page, right? And then what we learn to happen in verse 13 is that in the evening, quail is going to come up and cover the camp as well. All right? And so it appears as though God is going to respond to their desire for food by sending them this bread in the morning and quail in the evening. Sounds pretty nice. Thank you, God, for doing this. All right? Now, how does the bread kind of appear? And I think this is important to note, right? The bread doesn't appear, right, as if, like, you know, all of a sudden there's, like, Wonder Bread dropped on, like loaves of bread dropped all around the ground, right? But rather what the bread is like these flakes. You guys ever wake up in the morning, especially this time of year, it's happened already a couple times, and you look outside and there's like a layer of frost on the ground, right? A layer of frost, right? Do you ever like watch that frost disappear? It just kind of like goes, right? And so what happens is the manna appears almost like these flakes. I'm looking at verse 14. Right, these fine flakes that were on the surface of the wilderness. The people would go out, they would gather them into piles, put them in a jar, and then they could eat it, right, as it would sustain them. Okay? And then once the sun would rise, the flakes, the manna would kind of burn off from the ground. You know, like the way frost kind of disappears on you for a moment. When does it really happen? All right, so let me get a drink here. Using my wife's Les Mis cup, right? Any Les Mis fans? Les Miserables, right? The Miserables, right? Is my wife's favorite play of all time. So I figured I would use her mug tonight. Plus it matches my shirt, right? So what can I say? All right. So what happens with the manna? All right. Skip ahead to verse 17, 18, 19, and 20. Right, the Israelites do as Moses says, right? They go out and they gather the manna. Remember, they're not supposed to keep anything over until the next day, but they don't listen. Surprise, surprise. Why would you expect them to listen? Verse 20, they did not listen to Moses and kept a part of it over until the morning, and it became wormy and stank. Right? So the manna goes bad. It goes bad. Right? So that the people can't use it. Right? Remember, the reason why God is going to make them go out and gather the manna every day is He's trying to teach them trust. Trust that if I know where I'm going to eat tomorrow, I don't save it for later. So, for instance, when I go on the hiking club, right, I always bring a nice deli sandwich with me because the best part about hiking is to get to the top of the mountain, sit there with a big old sandwich, look over the view, right, at God's beauty of His creation and just enjoy it, right? So I'm sitting there with my big old sandwich, right, and I always decide, I'm going to eat half now, and I'll eat half later when I get back to the bus, right? I do that really because I want to make sure that when I'm hungry later, I have food to eat, right? Now, say, for instance, I'm hiking and I fall down, right, before I had eaten the sandwich, I'm going to divide that sandwich up even more, so I'm not going to eat half and then half. I'm going to divide it up into like eighths. This way I can sustain myself with food as long as I possibly can until I can get out of the woods. If you know where your next meal is coming, there's no reason to store anything, right? But if you don't know where your next meal is coming, then there's a lot of reason to have to store some food. And so the people here are storing the manna because they are not believing yet that God is in fact going to send the manna again tomorrow. And God is trying to teach them the manna is coming every day. Every day. There's no reason for you to have to worry about it. There's no reason for you to have to save it for the next day. The only time you got to do that is on day 6 because it's not coming on the Sabbath. So I'm telling you to get enough for 2 days. All right. Now, if you look in the middle, right, and there's a scrolling sidebar on page 96, right in the middle, the manna is obviously a type for the Eucharist, right? Jesus, right? Jesus is this bread that comes down from heaven, right? That is the life for the world, that gives us nourishment, that is going to sustain us, right? Just like the manna is going to sustain the people here in the desert. Right? Just notice here on the Living Catholic, the 3 laws that Moses and God established with the manna, right? To gather manna each morning. On day 6, you're going to take an extra day's rations for the Sabbath, and you're always going to keep a jar of manna for future generations to remember this by. Okay? All right. So that's the manna. Right? That's the manna. Chapter 17 now, we're going to get water from the rock. Right? Now, there was no water. We're looking at the first paragraph there after the 17. But there was no water for the people to drink. And so they quarreled once again with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Moses replied to him, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? Right? So Moses is saying to the people, I don't understand. Why do you keep doing this to me? Why do you keep testing God? When every time you need something, why do you start complaining about it? Right? And so, in verse 3, Here then in their thirst for water, the people grumbled against Moses, saying, why then did you bring us out of Egypt to have us die of thirst with our children and our livestock? And so Moses cried out to the Lord, what am I to do with this people? A little more and they will stone me. So the Lord answered Moses, go ahead of the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, holding in your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile. Verse 6, I will be standing there in front of you on the rock in Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will flow from it for the people to drink. All right? So what's the plan? The people are complaining about water. Right? They're complaining about water. So God says, I got it. Go to that rock over there. Take the staff in the half. Strike it. As soon as you strike it, I will be standing there in front of the rock. You will strike the rock, and water will flow from the rock. All right? And this is exactly what Moses does. He goes over to the rock, he whacks it, and boom, water comes from the rock. And we called this place Massa and Meribah. Right? Massa and the Meribah. The place where Moses brings forth water from the rock. Right? All of these highlights are in Schoology for you in the notes and highlight section if you want to grab it. All right. Now, if you look over, right, at the scrolling sidebar on page 97, St. Paul tells us that the rock here at Massa and Meribah is a type for Christ. Just as Christ is struck while he's hanging on the cross, he's struck one time, his heart is pierced, and life-giving blood and water flow forth from his side. Okay? So we can keep that as a note. All right, verse 8, battle of the Amalekites. All right, it's not a surprise that the people are going to have to fight some battles here. They're going to have to fight some battles. Before we do this, let me poke the fire because we need to make sure we I need the flame, right? Just gotta get some more air, poke it around a little bit here. Right, move the logs. Right, we're good. This piece just fell out of my tree the other day, so I'm just gonna throw that in here also. Alright, nice piece of sycamore. It's a sycamore tree. Right, it's a very heavy, dense wood is the sycamore tree that I just threw in there. Alright, a log that I threw in. Alright, verse 8 here now, the battle of the Amaleks. Then Amalek came and waged war against Israel and Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose some men for us, and tomorrow go out and engage Amalek in battle. I will be standing on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him. He engaged Amalek in battle with Moses. Aaron and Hur climbed to the top of the hill. As long as Moses kept his hands raised up, Israel had the better of the fight. But when he let his hands rest, Amalek had the better of the fight. Moses' hands, however, grew tired, so they took a rock and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the sword. So what's the battle plan here? The battle plan is this. Moses is going to say to Joshua, go get some men, and you're going to go fight against Amalek. I'm going to go up on the mountain, and I'm going to do this with my arms. And as long as Moses has his arms up like this, it says that Israel had the better of the fight. All right? Excuse me. All right? But what happens? Anybody know what happens when you stand there like this with your arms raised? Right? I'm starting to feel it already in my shoulders. Right? Your arms get tired. So when your arms get tired, you put them down. When he put his arms down, Amalek started to win. Right? So he'd have to put his arms back up. So the Israelites would win, but his arms would get tired. Eventually, what's going to happen is Aaron and Hur, his friends, are going to hold his arms up. Right? So Moses is going to be like this with his arms up. Still painful, but Aaron and Hur are going to be the ones that support his arms. So that Israel is able to defeat the Amaleks. Right? And I think it's important to note here, what's the purpose behind this, is the prayer, right, and the friendship. That Moses here is going to allow the people to win with the help of Aaron and Hur, right? And to once again highlight that this is not the Israelites defeating Amaleks. It is God who is aiding the Israelites in helping to defeat the Amaleks. All right. Let's go to section 35. I'd like to do this section, and then I'll call it quits for today. Section 35, the people have arrived at Mount Sinai. Now, if you click on the did you note right there, right, Mount Sinai is the same mountain as Mount Horeb. Very good. Right, Mount Sinai is the same mountain as Mount Horeb. What happened on Mount Horeb? The burning bush. So they're at the same mountain, the mountain of God. Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, same mountain. All right? And by the time they get there, right, it's going to be like this decision-making time for the people. God's looking to make this relationship official, right? Would you be willing to make this relationship official? All right? And so it says here, look at the second paragraph. It says, while Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, Moses went up the mountain of God. Then the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, this is what you will say to the house of Jacob. Tell the Israelites, you have seen how I treated the Egyptians, and how I bore you up on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me completely and keep my commandments, my covenants, you will be my treasured possession among all the people. Through all the earth is mine. You will be to me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. All right? So God is going to lay out for them, look, would you like to make this exclusive? I will be your God. You will be my people. You worship me alone, and I will bless you. I will make sure you are given everything you need. All right? And God, once again, is going to remind them of his love for them already when he says to them, remember what I did to the Egyptians, how I literally brought you out on eagle's wings, right? And if you will obey me, you will be my treasured possessions, right? Treasured possession. And so Moses goes to the people in verse 7 and says, what do you say? What do you want to do? And in verse 8, the people will respond with everything that the Lord has said, we will do. Right? They respond with a resounding, hurrah, yes, we will. Moses goes back to the Lord and says, all right, they're going to do whatever you ask. All right? So what's going to happen if you turn the page is what we call the Great Theophany. God is going to ratify this covenant by allowing the people to have an experience of Him. Remember we said theophany was an audible or visible or audible manifestation of God's glory. So here what's going to happen is the mountain is going to be completely enveloped in smoke, right? Because the Lord has come down upon the mountain in fire, right? And as Moses speaks to God, God is going to answer with clangs of thunder, right? Thunder. Notice in the commentary, and highlight this first line in the commentary, that Mount Sinai, the Lord is going to establish His covenant with His people. But the covenant condition proposal is conditional. To experience the blessings and benefits, Israel must adhere to the covenant as given in the Decalogue, 10 Commandments, and the Covenant Code. All right? Israel is singled out from the nations for a special mission. All right? It's conditional. I will be your God, you will be my people. Either one of us break that, that's going to be a problem. Okay? After they ratify the covenant here, Moses in section 36 is going to climb Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments. And that's what we have been going through for the last week or so in class. All right? So we're going to leave it there. On Monday when we come back after Thanksgiving, we'll go through the final 5 commandments. Most of us in the classes got through up to number 5, right? I had one class, I think this first period, got through number 6. So we'll go through those. I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, all right? Don't forget the Salve Challenge. If you're up for an extra credit, all you got to do is videotape you and your family singing the Salve during your Thanksgiving feast. All right, it's going to be worth 1 quiz grade. I will replace your lowest quiz grade with 100 if you do it. All right, so that's your Salve Challenge. It's important also, guys, to remember on Thanksgiving to thank God for what you have. Right? This is not just a day to thank your parents and be grateful and all that stuff, but you gotta thank God for all the wonderful things He's given you. Okay? So that's it for my fireside chat today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm praying for you while I'm on retreat today, and I'll see you all on Monday. All right? I'm gonna see this thing went to sleep. All right, Moran out. Mr. Moran. That's who I am. Some call me Sam.